had a revelation that I was going to find some weird artifact, which is a very strange thing to find 45 years later. And I pulled out the first image and I said, that's my brother Bob. And then I looked at the second image and I realized, no, that's not, that's me. It was my brother wore glasses. And I realized, God, that's me, you know, this tow-headed kid on. And it's so funny because you see the crowd and you just see this kid on top of the crowd. So your eye goes,
okay.
So they took me downstairs and showed me the newsreel footage. And you see them all come across the street, take the podium. And it's strange, there's a black umbrella kind of behind Kennedy in that footage. It's, you know, now you can read all kinds of things into that. But here is a man at the peak of his life and his career as the President of the United States. Little does he know that in 3 hours he will be murdered in cold blood in front of a lot of witnesses.
The last hours of President John F. Kennedy began this morning in a misty, grim day in Fort Worth, a city just 28 miles to the west of Dallas. At 8:45 this morning, President Kennedy walked outside of the hotel, bareheaded as usual and without a coat, into a parking lot across the street from Fort Worth's Hotel Texas. This was not a planned thing earlier when the President's Texas itinerary was planned, but in response to requests from Democratic leaders in Fort Worth, the President agreed to come out ahead of his regularly scheduled breakfast address, as he did come out and address some 8,000 people. These shots at 8:45 this morning in Fort Worth. The rain stopped about this time, by the way, I believe. Bob Clark.
Yes, it had been raining quite heavily only a few minutes before. This speech was added suddenly to the President's schedule only yesterday evening. The White House announced at that time that Mr. Kennedy wanted to talk to the people of Fort Worth. His other major speech there was to the Chamber of Commerce.
It's interesting, too, right before the President made his speech, he was given a big Texas hat, a pair of cowboy boots, and also Mrs. Kennedy was given a pair of boots. Jim Wright, Fort Worth.
And the Vice President being able to introduce the President, which he did. And President Kennedy's remarks outside were brief, but the people responded with warm applause. So happy that the President saw fit to come outside the hotel, since, of course, the hotel dining room where he spoke later has just limited seating capacity. 8,000 people was the estimate crowd.
The President had flown into Fort Worth late last night after a hectic first day on his planned three-day swing through Texas. He had the two speeches scheduled in Fort Worth and then was to move on to Dallas later in the day.